This thing you are about to read is not just a message. It is not a script. It is not a story. It is not an explanation. It is a field, a transmission, a frequency that communicates with parts of you that do not use language, but memory, not human memory, but vibrational memory, recorded long before you were born. If this found you now, it is not coincidence. It is not an algorithm. It is not chance. It is the answer. Because something inside you asked for this long, before you even knew what you were asking for. There are moments in life when the external world simply can't explain what you feel anymore. You try to justify it, try to rationalize it, try to fit everything into logic, but something silent and insistent keeps calling from within, a sensation that you are about to cross an invisible threshold, a sensation that doesn't begin in the mind, but in the body, the shiver that comes before you understand why. The gentle pressure in your chest when something is true, the heat running down your spine when a revelation is about to happen. Many call this intuition. Others call it awakening. But some recognize it for what it truly is, the call of the children of the frequency. These souls are not grouped by personal traits, beliefs, or lifestyles. They do not belong to a religion, a doctrine, a system. This lineage is vibrational. It exists beyond history, beyond cultures, beyond names. They are souls that carry a specific energetic code, something that remains dormant until certain signs begin to light up. And in the past months, you may have felt this, an acceleration, a strangeness, a silent expansion that offers no explanation, only direction. Maybe you've noticed an increase in coincidences that don't feel like coincidences at all. Repeating numbers appearing exactly when you question something. A song playing at the exact moment your heart asks for a sign. People you haven't seen in years suddenly reappearing. Dreams that carry more emotion than imagery. Sensations that don't come from what's happening around you, but from what's being activated inside you. These are the first impulses of the frequency, calling, remembering, reorganizing, preparing. The children of the frequency always knew even before they knew. From an early age, you felt there was something different about the way you perceived the world. While others simply moved through the day, you decoded. You felt layers. You saw silence. As a child, you sensed what someone felt even when they said the opposite. You picked up intentions, vibrations, microexpressions, atmospheres. No matter how hard you tried to ignore it, it was impossible not to notice the unspoken. But for a long time you believed this was too much sensitivity, too much imagination, too much depth. The world trained you to lower the volume, trained you to be practical, rational, contained. And you tried. You tried to adapt, to be like everyone else, to follow what was expected. But the frequency always kept the door open, even if tiny, even if silent, a door that has now begun to expand. This is how it begins for the children of the frequency, not with explosions, but with whispers, with that strange sensation that you are not merely living your life, you are being repositioned, as if something is moving you into a specific place, even if you don't know what place that is, as if decisions that once felt impossible now begin to make sense, as if old restlessness fades away and new questions rise from within with no external origin. In the last days or weeks, you may have felt your emotions working differently, moments of sadness that pass too quickly, moments of deep peace in the middle of chaos, waves of nostalgia that don't belong to any real memory. This is how the frequency works. It stirs the inner layers before the outer ones reorganize. Children of a frequency feel before they understand. They recognize before they remember. And when the remembering begins, nothing goes back to what it was. Many experience something curious in this initial phase, a light sense of detachment, as if you're living your life and at the same time observing it from afar, as if you're inside the moment but also around it. This sensation is not confusion, it is expansion. Your consciousness is growing beyond the body, beyond the story, beyond the personal narrative. It is the start of the activation of the double perception, the human and the vibrational. And as this expansion unfolds, perceptions that were once subtle begin to intensify. You may feel changes in the way you sense people. Someone walks into the room, and your energy shifts instantly for better or worse. You can feel the mood of a place before looking around. You can tell something is wrong before seeing any evidence. Your readings are not rational. They are frequential. And the more you try to explain them, the more you realize there is no explanation, only recognition. Children of the frequency carry an energetic field that works like a radar. This radar doesn't read words. It reads vibration. It doesn't read behavior. It reads intention. It doesn't read appearance. It reads coherence. And as it awakens, you start noticing which people belong on your path and which ones are only orbiting out of habit. You notice what lifts you and what drains you. You notice who speaks to you and who speaks merely to maintain an image. You notice what resonates and what is just noise. But most importantly, you start noticing yourself, your patterns, your cycles, your repetitions, your escapes, your truths. For the first time, you're not just observing, you're hearing yourself. And that changes everything, because this is the moment something awakens, something that has been dormant for a very long time, something most of the world has forgotten, but the children of the frequency carry as destiny the inner calling. This calling has no words, but it has direction. It doesn't say, do this. It says, remember. It doesn't point to the future. It points inward. It is the undeniable sensation that everything you've lived until now was preparing you for a specific point on your timeline, a point of activation. And that point is happening right now in this very moment as you read these words. You are not here by accident. You did not arrive at this text out of curiosity. Something in you recognized this field. Something in you remembered. And this is only the beginning. From very early on, even before you understood what it meant to be alive, there was already a sensation you couldn't explain, as if something were watching you from the corner of your vision, not as a threat, but as a silent presence waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Sometimes it was just an unexpected shiver. Other times, a strange calm in the midst of chaos. And even without understanding, you knew it wasn't ordinary. It wasn't human. It wasn't from this world. With time, you try to ignore it. Try to live how everyone lives. Think how everyone thinks. Act how everyone acts. Try to fit into spaces, meet expectations, where identities that were never yours. But something always slipped through. There was always a moment, a look, a silence, in which you realized there was something profoundly different about you, something that didn't fit, because it wasn't meant to fit. Some people go through life without ever noticing this. You didn't. You noticed too early. And that made you carry a weight you couldn't understand. A sensitivity no one around you could decode. You felt when something was wrong without anyone saying it. Felt when someone lied, even while smiling. Felt when an environment was heavy, even if it looked normal. It was as if your skin, your body, and your soul functioned like antennas, receiving information others didn't pick up. And for a long time you thought it was weakness. That something was wrong with you. That maybe you were too sensitive. But the truth was never that. The truth is that you were functioning at the level you were born to function. You were just surrounded by people who didn't recognize that frequency. Because there is a group of souls that are not from here. A group that didn't come to repeat patterns, but to break them. Didn't come to sleep, but to awaken. Didn't come to follow, but to remember. And this group has always been rare, silent, discreet yet profoundly powerful. They are known in many ancient traditions as the children of the frequency. They are not defined by age, appearance, culture, or origin. They are defined by something much deeper vibration that pierces the physical body and activates layers of perception that most people cannot access. They know there is something beyond. They feel it. They remember. Even when they can't put it into words, even when they don't fully understand, even when they think it's all in their head, they carry a recognition that does not come from intellect, it comes from soul. And you are one of them. And you always knew. But before consciously understanding this, what came first was a discomfort. Because awakening never begins with light. It begins with restlessness, with the sensation that something is wrong, even when everything looks right. It begins with a strange longing for a place you cannot name. It begins with silent crises no one sees, with sleepless nights in which you feel that something inside you is moving, shifting, awakening. It begins with the impression that the world is louder, heavier, faster, and you can't keep up without becoming misaligned. It begins with discomfort in environments that once felt familiar. It begins with a growing need to withdraw, to silence, to turn inward, as if something inside you were preparing for something big, even if you don't yet know what it is. And it is exactly there that the calling begins to manifest. The calling does not appear as an external voice. It appears as an internal shift. A sudden change almost always silent, yet impossible to ignore. Suddenly, you no longer care about the same things. Suddenly, people who once made sense no longer do. Suddenly, ordinary conversations drain your energy. Suddenly, you feel you can no longer live in automatic mode. Something in you starts to move. Something in you begins to awaken memories that are not from this life. Something in you begins to demand purpose not as a pretty idea, but as a vital necessity. Because children of the frequency did not come to exist. They came to resonate. And resonance requires presence, alignment, truth, courage to abandon versions of yourself that were never yours and return to what you have always been. And maybe you are exactly at this point right now. Maybe that's why you are hearing this. Maybe that's why something inside you vibrated in the first seconds. Maybe that's why your breath shifted, your chest tightened, or your skin tingled. This is not emotion. This is not coincidence. This is not suggestion. This is recognition. Your body recognized it before your mind. Your soul recognized it before your reasoning. Because the message didn't come to convince you, it came to awaken what was already there. And this is only the beginning. The calling never arrives all at once. It doesn't invade, doesn't force, doesn't demand. It approaches slowly, like someone lighting a candle in a dark room and waiting for your eyes to adjust. Activation, for the children of the frequency, happens in layers, some perceptible, others invisible, but all inevitable. And once it begins, there is no going back. The first layer is usually the sensation of displacement. It is not sadness, not anxiety, not loneliness, though it can be confused with all of them. It is something deeper, a subtle misalignment between who you appear to be and who you truly are. It's like wearing clothes that no longer fit, but insisting on using them, because that's what you've always done. It's a discomfort that begins small, but grows each time you ignore your own truth. And it is precisely at this point that many children of the frequency think they are breaking. But in reality, they are beginning to remember. The second layer is heightened sensitivity. Sounds feel louder. Environments feel denser. Certain people drain your energy without saying a word. And others, rare ones, bring instant peace just by being near. You start noticing details you once ignored, micro-expressions, hidden intentions, vibrations no one else perceives. And this ability is not a flaw, it is radar. It is an ancient tool inherited from lives, realms, and realities where you functioned in expanded form. The third layer is voluntary isolation. Not the isolation born from fear, but the one born from discernment. You begin to withdraw from empty conversations, superficial relationships, mechanical routines. You start seeking silence, nature, introspection. You prefer being alone rather than being where you do not belong. And though it may feel like loneliness at times, it is not, it is alignment, because the next stages of awakening require space, clarity, and clean energy. Then comes the fourth layer, internal recognition. Not an intellectual recognition, but an energetic one. That feeling of I've lived this before, I've felt this, am remembering. It is the moment the soul begins retrieving memories that do not belong to this lifetime, but influence this lifetime. Memories of other missions, other systems, other existences. Not something clear, not something you can describe as a story, but something that vibrates in the body as absolute truth. And in this layer, many realize they were never alone, that something was always guiding, protecting, directing. Signs, impossible coincidences, unexpected encounters, lucid dreams, symbolic messages that repeat. No matter how they manifest, they always come with the same intention, to remind you who you are. The fifth layer is perceptual expansion. You begin to see not only what is, but what is behind what is. You begin to perceive energetic patterns in people. You feel the truth before hearing the words. You distinguish what is ego and what is essence. You sense the real vibration of environments, and that changes everything. Because once you see the energetic truth, you can no longer live the emotional lie. And then comes the sixth layer, the deepest, the most complex, the most transformative, the rupture. The rupture is not punishment, not collapse, not bad luck. It is reconfiguration. It is as if the universe gathered everything that was disordered inside you, beliefs, fears, habits, old versions, distorted memories, and began to dismantle it. And though the process is uncomfortable, it is necessary, because children of the frequency cannot carry weights that aren't theirs. They cannot fulfill their mission with structures built from the past. The rupture is a cleansing that precedes a definitive activation. At this stage, something extraordinary begins to happen, the energetic shift. It feels as if your vibration suddenly rises to a new level and everything around you starts reacting. People distance themselves without explanation. New connections appear with perfect synchronicity. Doors that were closed for years open effortlessly. Situations that made no sense suddenly end. Your body changes. Your intuition accelerates. Your sensitivity multiplies. This isn't coincidence. This is resonance. Children of the frequency, once activated, begin emitting a vibration so distinct that the world around them cannot remain the same. Some people are drawn to them like a magnetic field. Others pull away instantly because their light exposes the other's shadows. You become a mirror, and not everyone is ready to see themselves. But the most important part is that at this stage you begin to feel a type of longing that is not human. A longing not for places, people, or moments, but for a state of consciousness. It feels as if a part of you is saying, I have been more than this. I once remembered more than I remember now, and I am beginning to remember again. This longing is not pain. It is compass. It points to what you are becoming. And it is at this point that the calling stops being a whisper and becomes an internal command. You feel you must change, must act, must align, must follow something you cannot explain but cannot ignore. And this urgency does not come from fear, it comes from memory. Because children of the frequency do not awaken to survive. They awaken to serve. They awaken to remember. They awaken to vibrate. They awaken to reorder. And soon, you will understand exactly what you came here to do and why this activation is happening now. There is a moment in the awakening of the children of the frequency when the question stops being what is happening to me and becomes what did I come here to do. This is the point where the internal activation begins touching the external purpose. And when this happens, everything changes because for the first time you realize you are not going through this process randomly. There is direction. There is function. There is mission. The ancients knew this. They didn't call these souls sensitive, strange, or misfits. They called them bearers of light. Not because they carried a physical light, but because they carried a state of consciousness capable of altering entire fields. People, environments, situations, everything shifts when a bearer of light is present. Not because they try to change it, but because they're the change. And you may have already noticed this, even if quietly. People tell you things they don't tell anyone else. You perceive pains no one revealed. You sense lies hidden behind smiles. You can read intentions before hearing words. And without saying a thing, your presence shifts the climate of a place for better or worse, depending on the vibration around you. This isn't coincidence. This is energetic field. This is vibrational influence. This is soul signature. Children of the frequency do not shape environments by what they do, but by what they emanate. And here is a secret few know bearers of light do not awaken to escape darkness. They awaken to walk through it. They are not protected from chaos. They are sent into it. They are placed in dense families, difficult environments, repetitive cycles, chaotic structures not as punishment, but as assignment, because it is in these places that their vibration becomes a tool. You may have noticed how many of the most painful moments of your life were not just obstacles, but portals. How the moments you thought you were losing everything were the same moments in which you leveled up. How internal crises brought external clarity you wouldn't have reached otherwise. This is not bad luck. This is spiritual engineering. The life of a child of the frequency is not random. It is strategic. Every person who crosses your path, every cycle that repeats, every loss, every rupture, all of it aligns with the expansion of your vibration. Because the more you expand, the more you alter the vibration of everything around you. But here is something even deeper. Bearers of light do not light up the world by saying, "Look at me." They light up the world by making others say, "Now I can see." Your purpose is not to shine alone. It is to ignite others. And the process begins almost imperceptibly. You say something simple, and someone changes their life. You offer silence, and they understand what they needed. You walk into a tense environment, and the energy stabilizes. You leave, and everything collapses again. This is not drama. It is energetic function. You are stabilizer in some places, activator in others, revealer in others. And sometimes you are the catalyst that makes someone wake up, even if that means they pull away from you. This is why so many people enter and exit your life abruptly, not because you are hard to love, but because your energy accelerates internal processes in others, and not everyone is ready to handle that. Bearers of light awaken dormant truths, and truth can be healing or uncomfortable. And this is exactly why many of your relationships ended without explanation. Why some people vanished suddenly. Why others approached you as if they already knew you. Children of the frequency recognize each other instantly, even if they don't consciously understand. The soul knows. The vibration knows. Something inside says, "I remember you." And that sensation is always mutual. But there's something greater, something that transcends personal relationships and reaches the heart of the collective mission of the bearers of light, the realignment of the timeline. Yes, because children of the frequency do not work at the level of matter. They work at the level of vibration, and vibration shapes reality. Every aligned decision, every released memory, every broken pattern, every individual awakening contributes to the reconfiguration of an entire timeline. When you awaken, it is not only your life that changes. A whole invisible network of possibilities reorganizes. Have you ever felt that certain things only began to flow after you had the courage to break from something old? Notice that when you heal a trauma, everything around you reorganizes like dominoes? Saw that your decision to follow your truth impacts people who weren't even involved? That is field manipulation. That is energetic reordering. That is the work of a bearer of light. You did not come here to be ordinary. You did not come here to follow. You did not come here to fit. You came here to remember, and by remembering, activate. Bearers of light are vibrational switches. They turn things on. They catalyze. They dismantle patterns. They initiate cycles. They close others. They bring clarity where there was confusion, direction where there was stagnation, movement where there was paralysis. And you already do this even without realizing it. But now we reach the most crucial point. Why is the calling happening now? Why has your activation intensified at this exact moment in your life? Why have the signs appeared all at once? And the answer is simple and profound. Because the world has entered the phase in which the bearers of light must be awake. There comes a moment on the path of the children of the frequency when everything that once felt confusing begins to align. You don't notice this moment with your eyes, you notice it with your body. It is as if an invisible piece clicks into place inside you, and suddenly, life stops feeling like a random sequence of experiences and becomes a map, an architecture, a route that was already written. And this is exactly the moment you are crossing now. The question that have followed you for years. Why do I feel so much? Why do I perceive beyond the obvious? Why do people react so intensely to my presence? Why does my life reorganize in such dramatic ways? None of these questions were noise. They were invitations, portals, reminders that you were approaching the moment when your consciousness would step into your purpose. Children of the frequency share a common pattern. They spend half their lives thinking something is wrong with them until they realize the truth is that something is wrong with the world. And that is precisely why they were born different. To see what others cannot see. To feel what others cannot feel. To carry codes that only activate when the world enters transition. And the world has entered. That is why you were intuitively pulled toward messages like this one. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't distraction. It was resonance. The calling comes when the field is ready. And once the calling arrives, nothing can remain as it was. There are internal shifts, broken cycles, external changes, abrupt expansions of consciousness. You've already noticed. Friendships fell away, relationships changed, old interests disappeared, sensitivity increased, synchronicities exploded, old patterns collapsed, truths surfaced. None of this was accidental. It was vibrational preparation. Children of the frequency go through an intense period of internal deconstruction precisely so that the new vibration can find space to settle. Your soul is not falling apart. It is rebuilding itself. It is reminding you. It is repositioning you. And that is why, even in the most chaotic periods, there was an odd sense that something bigger was happening even when you didn't understand it. Now you understand. You are being activated for the most mature phase of your mission. And before you imagine something grand, heavy, or complicated, here is the simplest and most powerful spiritual truth. Children of the frequency do not change the world by doing. They change the world by being. The vibration you sustain shifts the field around you. Your presence reorganizes. Your intention activates. Your clarity transforms. Your sensitivity decodes. Your silence stabilizes. Your energy opens paths a human mind could never build alone. That is why you went through everything you went through, to remember what was already yours. And here is the ultimate turning point. The activation of the children of the frequency does not happen in the future. It happens the moment you finally accept who you are, when you stop asking for permission, when you stop shrinking, when you stop doubting, when you stop trying to fit into places your soul never belonged, when you accept that your sensations are wisdom, not exaggeration, when you understand that your mission is not to be understood, but to be conscious. In that instant, the vibration shifts. And when the vibration shifts, the path shifts. And when the path shifts, the world responds. Children of the frequency do not walk alone. They walk through the field. They walk with time. They walk with the purpose written before incarnation. That is why, even when you try to be something else, something always brought you back. There was always a sign, always a calling, always a sense that you were meant for something beyond the ordinary. You were not wrong. You were remembering. And now we arrive at the final point, not of the story, but of the activation. The world does not need you to try to change it. The world needs you to hold the frequency. Because children of the frequency are anchors in times of transition, beacons in times of confusion, stabilizers in times of chaos, activators in times of awakening. You are not here to save anyone. You are here to vibrate so powerfully that those who are ready save themselves through resonance. The universe does not make mistakes. If this message found you, it is because you're already vibrating at the level required to receive it. And once this vibration awakens, there is no return. Now you understand why your life was never ordinary. Now you understand why you always felt out of place. Now